For a long time, it's been a mantra of companies such as banks to say, get them when they're young and you'll have a customer for life. And so they heavily, many times in wrong ways, I believe, target children and young people and encourage things like pester power. Whilst, yes, for many, the holy grail is the younger person, there are right and wrong ways to go about it. Too many marketing agencies, though, think they understand all markets. I personally think that if you want to reach that younger and family market and make them loyal to you, you need some specialist help and knowledge. That's why today I'm delighted to have the opportunity of chatting with the managing director of Generation Media, which is the leading independent specialist in communication to children, young people, and families. Welcome, Lisa Morgan. Nice to see you, Lisa.
Hi, Malcolm. It's great to be here.
Thank you. So tell me about yourself and Generation Media.
Yes, as you said, Generation Media are the leading independent specialists, and we focus on communication to children, young people and families. We recently entered the top 20 UK agency list, and we're also focusing on our growth internationally as well. Personally, I've worked at the company for just over 10 years now. I have nearly 20 years experience in advertising and marketing. I've worked at agencies small and large. I've worked at several of the network agencies, including Mindshare and Mediacom. And I've also worked at Zenith Ops Media, which is part of the Publicis group as well. And there I worked on brands such as L'Oreal and MTL.
Very good. Yeah, because you were worth it, of course. Yeah. All right. So why is it important to seek the help of specialists like Generation Media?
Yeah, I think when my time at the network agencies really showed me that there can be a lack of focus on children's brands and people who are communicating with children. So I think in particular, I have recollections of it being called Mickey Mouse Media. So I think one of the main goals for our business has been to professionalise how children's media is approached. I think it was all too common to see people talk about children and grouping together the age of 4 to 15-year-olds. And as we all know, 4-year-olds are very, very different from 15-year-olds, and so is the way we need to communicate with them. So we take particular care at understanding the nuances and uniqueness of each of the different ages, genders, and other impacts that go into the audience.
I love the way that you place a lot of emphasis on ensuring that your team embed CPD, continuous professional development. I agree with you because I'm a chartered marketer and CPD is a requirement of that status, but I think more businesses should adopt CPD. Why do you do it? Why do you insist on it? And what does it do for Generation Media?
Yeah, I think, it's particularly important to us because we have a very young team relative to other agencies, and particularly our management team is relatively young as well. And so I think the training and development has really been at the heart of our culture and our business to get us where we have been today. And I truly believe that. And we input our training and development at all levels of the company. We're very fortunate that's been recognised by the industry. So we're a platinum level with the Institute of Practitioners of Advertising for our CPD. And we're also recognised by Investors in People at a gold standard. And what that process allows us to do is continuously review on an annual basis how we're approaching things and where we can improve things still as well.
Yeah, great. I think too many people think we've been doing it for years. We don't need to learn anymore. It's a constant.
Yeah.
So how do you think the coronavirus crisis and the likely upcoming recession and Brexit will change trends in communication?
Yeah, I think we've seen some really interesting short-term trends. So, for example, the closure of cinemas means there is no cinema advertising market currently. The fact that people haven't been able to go outdoors really stifled the outdoor market, the poster market. I think longer term, what's been very interesting during this period is the quick adoption of technology within the home. So I think if you look at, say, Disney Plus, they couldn't have got the launch timing of that more perfect, really. I think it was the week lockdown hit, and they've certainly reaped the benefits in terms of subscription numbers. Something like TikTok, we already monitored at the beginning of the year and saw an uprise in TikTok. But I think that's been further accelerated by this period. And actually, we've seen an evolution across the family group. No longer is it just the younger people getting involved in it. actually we're seeing a lot of older people, because the families are locked down together, getting involved in TikTok as well. So I think it's that acceleration maybe of some of those technologies. I think probably the biggest thing we'll see coming out as we go to sort of Christmas purchasing, which we're very focused on at the moment, is the rise of e-commerce purchasing, and how that's going to shift the decision making between parent, gift giver and child. The fact that a child potentially won't be able to go into the store and browse and select what they want. It's going to be a very interesting market, and we're keeping a close eye on what's going to happen in the run up to Christmas.
Yeah. But don't worry, the children will still know what's the most popular toy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think we launched our business during the last recession, and things ran smoothly for the first 10 years. So.
Yeah. So do businesses who want to attract the younger and the family market need to think hard about how they communicate their green credentials? If so, how do you help them achieve this?
Yeah, I think the toy market in particular has come under a lot of scrutiny in this area. I mean, I have 2 children myself, and anyone who's had children in the household at any point knows, particularly at Christmas, the amount of wastage and packaging that's there. I think it was really great to see at the toy fairs at the beginning of this year. I went to the London one and the New York one, and my team were out in Nuremberg, and it's the first time I've really seen a lot of that green messaging come through. So for plastic toys and products, they had a lot of substitute materials being utilised in the toys, and also a lot of innovation, so that the packaging actually becomes part of the play experience as opposed to a waste product. That's really positive to see. I think in the advertising world, we're yet to see too much come through in this space, but I think one of the most interesting examples is probably a search site. I'll probably get the pronunciation wrong, but I think it's called Ecosia, and essentially it's like a Google alternative, and it allows consumers to search products, and every time they search, a tree is planted somewhere in the world.
Right.
I think it's mechanics like that that are going to become really interesting, because our young consumers, they're very savvy about environmental issues, but they don't necessarily want to sacrifice on their consumerism for it. So it's going to find those ways in that means you're still getting the experience you need, but you know you're giving back as well.
Yeah, my 6-year-old grandchild is always telling me what she's learned about school, about melting icebergs and the importance of climate and everything.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, get them in, get the story in early, isn't it? Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. They're extremely savvy on that area.
Yeah. Post-Brexit, the way forward for the UK is greater exports. And we're encouraging that, by the way, with our Sell Global TV and podcast channels. But too many businesses who have great products, such as in the education sector, are reluctant to explore exporting, as they fear that they may offend local cultures, which can be very complicated at times. So with regard to the younger generations, where you have that real expertise, what should businesses be doing to be overcoming that cultural fear?
Yeah, I mean, children are growing up in what is a global community. So I think it's a very interesting question. I mean, if you take, for example, when we're looking at campaigns involving influencers, we can't look at that on a local level because the breadth of the influencer reach is global. So it makes sense that you're tapping into a global budget to facilitate something like that. I think in terms of getting things wrong, I think what we've learned along the way is it's really important to have that on the ground knowledge. So we have our own global network of agencies, and whilst we're the central management point for that, we really rely on them to make sure we get things right and correct for their culture and their market.
Yeah, so important, isn't it? But tell me, what does your brand, I love the title of it, by the way, Giraffe Insights, do for businesses?
Yeah, so they're a separate limited business, but we share the same CEO, and we partner with them on a number of stakeholder pieces. I think as a media agency, we really do believe in research, and we spend a lot of money in that space. Children can very often be left out of any research that's going on in the general marketplace. So we feel it's our duty to fill that gap. I think probably one of the most interesting projects they've been working on for a few years now is actually tracking the video viewing habits of children. And this has really allowed us to better understand where children are spending their video viewing time and how that's evolving. Because no longer is it just about the linear stream. As you're aware, we've got YouTube coming in, we've got Netflix, there's all kinds of new players on OTT channels coming through as well. And it's down to us to understand that complexity.
Fantastic. Listen, I go back to the old linotype days, and I loved newspapers, but I also love new media. But no matter how much I immerse myself in it, the constant change hurts my little grey cells. Where do you see media in the next 5 years? Will newspapers have continued to demise? Do I have to learn to dance TikTok style? Um, or where will the companies be spending media buying, do you think, in those 5 years?
Yeah, well, I think COVID's really accelerated some of the difficult decisions that needed to happen, particularly as you
Mm,
mentioned in the press marketplace. I think there was an announcement last week that Bauer are looking to close some of their mainline titles, which include things like Mother and Baby, which are staple titles we've used across the years. I think the Sun and the Times have both now opted out of the Audited Bureau circulations, which is
yeah,
the industry standard tracking system for the UK. So we're seeing all of these changes happen. But I think one of the things that we have seen is, I'm not sure if you're aware of a project called the Ozone Project, but it actually brings together all of the newspaper digital assets to sell that in a mass scale. And they've seen obviously unprecedented demand during this period, both from a consumer and an advertiser perspective. So I think there's always going to be a place for print media. But I think that's for the foreseeable future, and it'll be really interesting to see how things kind of develop from here.
yeah. It's really interesting, isn't it? Because in the past it was all about circulation as opposed to, say, readership.
Yeah,
And we're finding that people, we haven't got a huge circulation, but we've got a powerful readership
yeah,
or
and
listenership.
I think that that engagement factor is something we definitely measure when we're looking at our online campaigns. It's not necessarily always about volume; it's about engagement and an audience that listens.
Yeah, we constantly read of the ASA, that's the Advertising Standards
Yeah,
Association, rapping the knuckles of advertisers who have pushed the no-go line too far, especially in their message to children. I see that you are very ethical. So, how does Generation Media help advertisers see that red line no-go area?
yeah. I mean, we're not directly involved in kind of creative as such because we're on the media planning and buying side, but we
Yeah,
still see it very much as our duty to protect the audience that we're communicating with. So we're members of the Advertising Association. So they will often communicate with government, for example, on areas to do with child obesity, gambling, advertising to children, etc. So we always help with the dialogue of that. We also co-fund an initiative called Media Smart. So Media Smart is an education platform to help educate children and young people about the advertising industry and how to decode advertising as well as they grow up. And we co-fund that, and that gives free resources to both teachers and parents to help educate their children in this area, so they
yeah.
really know what they're getting into when they start seeing advertising.
And can anybody access Media Smart, or how
I
do they
believe so,
access?
yeah. I think on the website you can go straight on and access the resources.
Excellent. As you know, the title of our show here is Meet the Leader. So with your tremendous experience, I'd love if you can give some general guidance to viewers and listeners on how to be a successful leader in the fast-moving media sector.
Yeah, well, I think all of us ask ourselves that question probably on a daily basis, and probably no more so during this period. I think
Yeah,
we've all really had to kind of look at ourselves as leaders and think like, what is it we need to be offering our teams at this time? I think kind of I see my number one role as being a motivator and a coach to my
yeah,
team. I think it's my people that deliver to our clients day to day, not myself. So it's really important that I motivate them, that I give clear briefings, clear expectations. And really, when things go wrong, I tend to look at myself or somewhere in the process. That no one's gone in that day thinking, I don't want to do a good job today. They're all there and want to do a good job. It's just our job to give them the platform to do that. I think, secondly, having a really clear purpose. I think particularly during this time when we've had really difficult decisions to make as businesses, knowing your purpose and what you stand for really helps as a guiding compass in that decision-making process. So, for example, we state our purpose is to generate the best, and that's the best for our customer, the best for our company, and then the best for our community as well. And obviously part of that community is our team internally, and making sure we tick all three of those boxes is really important to us in a decision. And I think the final one is just being present. So particularly during this virtual time, just putting in a phone call to the team, seeing how they're getting on, asking for their views and opinions, and being available to them as and when they need reassurances or have questions to ask. So yeah, I think some of that's definitely been highlighted in the last couple of months.
I think brilliant, really good, and you come across as extremely caring. Is it hard reaching success level as a woman in your sector? What encourages you about what's happening at the moment, about emerging opportunities for women to be at the top?
Yeah, I think it wasn't something I really gave too much thought of in my early career. My mother always worked full time. I've got two older sisters who have built successful careers. So I think for me, it was really kind of the norm. I think if anyone was to ask me advice, it's about probably finding your career champions and mentors and people who are going to help give you a voice in those early days. And I've been very fortunate. I've had those throughout my career. I think it's really great to see that this has come up further up the agenda along with other diversity issues. And it's something we definitely look at and champion as a business as well. And I really encourage my team to get involved with associations such as WACL, which is Women in Advertising and Communications in London. And I think it's really important that we participate in those kind of events and keep elevating the message.
Yeah, I'm very inspired when I go into your website and the message that you're communicating. So I'll just remind people that are watching there, generationmedia.co.uk, pop along and see about Lisa and the team. So the final question, Lisa, it's fairy godmother time. If you were granted 3 wishes to ensure the future of media, what would they be?
Yeah, well, I think I'd interpret that question as kind of the media industry. And I guess for me, it was really about encouraging, like you were saying, that investment in our young talent and remembering that we're bringing up the leaders of the future. So if we want a successful media industry, we need to make sure we're investing in that talent. I think continuing to encourage that diversity. There are benchmarks in place set by the industry bodies such as the IPA. And we're all striving to meet those, and I think that's a really good thing to ensure the output that we're putting to the general consumers is representative of the world we live in today. And I think lastly, it's recognition of the vital role that media does play in today's society, not only in forming cultural norms but also in stimulating the economy. So I think it's been proven that kind of £1 that's spent in advertising outputs £6 or £7 in terms of the economy, and I think that's something that's going to be very important to help us come out the other side of the situation we currently find ourselves in.
I love the way that you combine, obviously, running a business very successfully in tough times, with always maintaining this ethical, caring approach. So Lisa Morgan of Generation Media, thank you very much indeed for our interview today. Thank you.
Thank you, Malcolm. It's been great.